Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us this afternoon for our Warrior Ethos panel. I am Cadet First Class Brian Augustine, and I will serve as your moderator this afternoon. It is my absolute privilege to welcome you and our Warrior Ethos panelists to this session as we continue our conversation surrounding the 2021 National Character and Leadership Symposium theme of Warrior Ethos as Airmen and Citizens. We would like to take a special moment to recognize our Ncls sponsors who have partnered with us to make this event possible. The class of 1959, the class of 1973, which is our flagship sponsor, the class of 1974, the class of 1993, the Association of Graduates, the Air Force Academy Foundation, the Falcon Foundation, the Muse Family Foundation, Aero Enix, class of 1977, and Mrs. Candy Enix, and other generous supporters. It is now my pleasure to introduce our panelists. Lieutenant Retired Morgan Luttrell, former U.S. Navy SEAL. Captain Shay Haver, the first female airman, Captain Shay Haver, the first female graduate of the U.S. Army Ranger School. First Lieutenant Chelsea Hips, the first female airman graduate of the U.S. Army Ranger School. And Sergeant First Class Lindsay Merringer, U.S. Army Airborne SATCOM Specialist. Panelists, please take a minute to introduce yourselves to our virtual audience. Mr. Morgan, we'll start with you.
Good afternoon. My name is Morgan Luttrell, U.S. Navy SEAL, retired, living in Willis, Texas right now. When I left the Navy, I attended grad school and then was appointed senior advisor to the Secretary of Energy, for the past 2 years, and now I'm an instructor at the Law Enforcement Management Institute at Sam Houston State University.
Captain Haver, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Captain Shay Haver. I am a captain in the Army. Most recently, I've taken command at the Old Guard, their 3rd Infantry Regiment, stationed at Fort Myer and Arlington National Cemetery. I started out my career in aviation and was an Apache pilot. After the career course, went into the big unknown, into the infantry, and have been doing that ever since.
Thank you, ma'am. First Lieutenant Hips.
Good afternoon, I'm Lieutenant Hipsch. I've been in the Air Force for 10 years, prior enlisted security forces. I'm currently stationed at Travis as a flight commander. I have about 30 airmen with me. I graduated Ranger School last August, so my hair is still growing out a little bit. And personally, in my off time, I train a lot of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and MMA.
Awesome, thank you so much, ma'am. Sergeant Merringer.
Hey, Sergeant First Class Lindsay Merringer. I've been an active duty Green Beret for the past 9 years here locally with you guys in Colorado Springs. For the first 6 or so years of that, I was a communications specialist, a Special Forces communications sergeant. And since then, I have been a Special Forces intelligence and assistant operations sergeant. I'm currently in the process of a med board and will be transitioning out to the civilian life early next year.
Awesome. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, panelists. We'll now begin with the moderated portion of our panel, which will be followed by an open question and answer time. Audience, we ask that as you listen to our discussion, you ask questions for our panelists using the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. Our virtual moderator, Cadet Second Class Kayla Steiner, will review your questions and share them with our panelists at the end of our session. Panelists will now begin with our questions. We'll begin with an icebreaker first and then get into some deeper questions. And this first question will be open to all the panelists, and Sergeant Merringer, will start with you, sir. What inspired you to pursue a career as a Green Beret?
Gimmicky enough, it was actually Rambo. I was a Rambo kid. I'm kind of that age, and I grew up in a small farm town, and we had a Christmas tree farm behind us, and we'd watch that movie and get all dressed up with the face, camouflage and fake guns and go play war out there. And, I had the child, naivety to thinking that Special Forces was Rambo. And it is not for anyone that is trying to go into that. But Yeah, for me, when I looked at across the branches, I thought that Green Berets were the most well-rounded. After I got past the Rambo phase and actually, was able to analyze the mission set, I thought they were the most well-rounded, and I really appreciated that. And I felt that it would challenge me most, and then also set me up for success later on in life. So yeah, that really kind of guided me.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Captain Haver, ma'am, we'll go with you next. What inspired you to go through Ranger School?
So I think some people had the chance to hear this the first time I did Ncls, but I absolutely did not want to go. When I first was presented with the opportunity, I was an Apache pilot and I was just doing my lieutenant thing at my first duty station. It honestly wasn't on my mind as something or as a possibility or something that I personally wanted to pursue. Thankfully, I did have some leaders that saw some things in me and encouraged me to give it a try. And so I did. And honestly, I couldn't be more grateful to the individuals along the way that gave me the inspiration to try and then to continue to try.
Awesome. I think we all need a little bit of that inspiration to get us moving. So thank you for sharing that. Mr. Morgan, we'll go with you next, sir. What inspired you to go through Navy SEAL and pursue a career as a Navy SEAL?
Much like Lindsay, it breaks my heart to know that Green Berets aren't like Rambo. So I was a Rambo guy too, but I have, the reason I chose the SEAL path is because I love the water. And my twin brother and I were watching a Discovery Channel special called The Silent Option, and it had the guy with the amazing voice who was doing descriptives on underwater and on land and in the air. And there was no question that we were going to serve in the military. It was just a matter of where. And so we really just teed off on that. And like every other special forces community, when you come from Nowhereville, Texas, with no DNA or no last name that says you have the capability of doing this, it was just something we set our minds to in the SEAL and to become SEALs.
Awesome. Thank you so much, sir. And Lieutenant Hips, ma'am, what inspired you also to go through Ranger School?
I think my perspective on Rangers for Air Force, I had only met maybe one or two of them prior to going. And I thought that, everyone really looked up to these guys. They've got this great leadership and they're so charismatic. So I finished my tech school for security forces when I commissioned, and my commander just randomly reached out to me and said, "You want to go to Ranger School? You want to go try out for the Air Force?" The Air Force has a 3-week course for it. So I told him no, I wasn't in good enough shape, but he told me that he really believed in me. And he said, "If you can pass the PT test, why don't you give it a shot?" So that's where I was. And, I always want to be a better leader. So that's why I ended up going.
Thank you so much. Thank you all so much for those answers to our little icebreaker. We'll move into some deeper questions. And speaking of Ranger School, that's a great segue into our next question. Captain Haver and Lieutenant Hips, Ranger School is traditionally a prerequisite for combat leaders within the Army, a role which women until recently have been excluded from. With this recent change to allow women to serve in combat arms and as pioneers in that field, how are you preparing to lead and mentor a new group of leaders, and what advice do you give to the next generation of female leaders? Captain Haver, man, we'll start with you.
All right, so that was a mouthful for a question, but I'll try to answer what I can up front. So first of all, I don't like to focus on the exclusion piece. I think always, and a lot of these questions probably will end up centering back to this, but I've never really been held back by many things other than myself, to be honest. So whether that's my mental idea of what I can do, or limited by my creativity of what I can come up with. And as I previously stated, having other people around you to encourage you to try things that you may not have known about or know that that's in your capacity. So kind of been on this, my own personal journey to find my potential and where it is that that leads me, will continue. So when I think about Ranger School specifically, sorry, like, you know, not like a myth buster maybe, but it is, Ranger School is not a prerequisite for combat arms. Actually, a lot of people, a lot of other combat arms branches don't get the opportunity even to go. When you think about armor, combat aviation, it's not really available. So the only people that really have the opportunity to go right away are infantry officers straight out of their basic leader course. And many of them don't get their tab on their first attempt. It takes the initiative and the want to and the drive to go back once they've gone to their unit unsuccessful, you know, and in their eyes probably now dealing with some of that combat, that failure, feeling failure, combating that image that makes them, you know, go back. So when it comes to that, and realizing that it should make the tab a little bit more, I guess, more worthy of being worn, and people should really appreciate when they see one, because it is not a guarantee. It has to be earned by hard work, and it has to be earned by the desire to go. The NCO Corps doesn't have the opportunity to just go. They have the opportunity to train and to have the want to. But even still, I've been a company commander. I'm on my 3rd company command right now. I would love to send all of my NCOs to Ranger School, and I don't even have that option. So when we call it the Premier Leadership School, it absolutely is. But that doesn't necessarily define, you know, every good leader in the Army. Some people just don't have the option to go. So I think what Ranger School does for individuals is gives them an experience that they can continue to build on. It's a baseline can scenario, kind of like when we do battle drills, right? Something to fall back onto. But most importantly, it's how you find out so much about yourself, the way you lead, the way that other people around you perceive you and use you on a team, and how to build teams and to do some of that. I think that when people do become so unsuccessful on their first attempt, it's that medal, like deciding like what kind of person that you are, and that kind of speaks something to other people too. So like I said, it's not a guarantee. It's hard work and hard earned. So I think that answers the first part of your question. Maybe the lieutenant can help with the rest of it.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. And of course, I'm sure you put in a lot of hard work to earn your Ranger tab. And I think that's a great accomplishment for you. And you serve as a role model for many people like aspiring to be like you. So thank you so much. Lieutenant Hibbs, ma'am, same question goes with you. With this recent change to allow women to serve in combat arms and as pioneers in this field, how are you preparing to lead and mentor this new group of leaders, and what advice do you have for the next generation of female leaders?
I think when it comes to leadership, and you know, we don't like to specifically talk about separation of females and males, but I think sometimes when you're in a position where you're looking around and you have 30 subordinates and they're all males and they're all looking at you as a female, I think the biggest thing that I always try to give people when we're talking about leading next generations and women getting these opportunities to lead is that respect is never given. It's always earned. So for those individuals going into a room thinking that they're going to look at my, you know, lieutenant bar and think that it means something, it doesn't until I talk to them and actually, you know, see what their worth is to make me a better team member and a better team leader. And the other thing that comes with that is leading by example, because you will be surprised the times when you really don't think so, how many people are watching you. Because, you know, just going through all the different prerequisites that I did just for Ranger School, there was just multiple times afterwards, someone came up to me and was like, hey, I noticed that you were carrying this heavy gun up this hill, and, you know, everyone's looking around like, is she really going to carry that thing up that hill? And it wasn't until afterwards that I noticed that people are actually like paying attention to me. And, you know, that can be a little bit intimidating, but just knowing that, and you carry yourself in a way to lead by example always, because you never know who's watching you. So just make the most out of it and don't complain in front of your guys. That's my biggest recommendation for leading in the future.
Awesome. Well, just to go based off of what you said, ma'am, when you're talking about people looking at you as you're walking up the hill with a heavy rifle. Did any of that ever discourage you throughout your training?
Discourage me in the sense of like I didn't want to carry it, or discourage me how so?
As in, you didn't want to carry it, or if you really had the ability to finish through it, with some people doubting you.
Okay, I think the the doubt was kind of funny to me, and I'm sure Captain seen a lot of it too, where guys for some reason just don't think that maybe you have the strength to do something. And you know, you can't really affect everyone that you've met, and people are still going to have those negative feelings towards you. Maybe they are a little bit sexist or whatnot, but just talking to some people afterwards, and they were like, I really thought you were going to fall out there. And, you know, I'm looking around at them thinking the same thing, like, oh, wow, they look tired, just as tired as me, but I got to get up this hill. So I don't think it was ever discouraging. I think it was kind of surprising because I just didn't realize that some people were looking at me like that until afterwards they would talk to me and say, wow, you know, you really inspired me because I was carrying less weight than you, but I saw you still moving, and, you know, I couldn't look like I wasn't as strong as you. So I think it was kind of, I think it was more encouraging than you would think.
And that totally makes sense. Like some of the things that we think would discourage us actually motivates us to finish through. And so thank you for sharing that, man, and Captain Haver. This next question will be for the gentleman. When you started your journey of becoming a Green Beret or a Navy SEAL, were you always sure that you would succeed, or were there periods of self-doubt throughout your training or your career? And if so, how did you get through it? Sergeant Maringer, sir, we'll start with you.
When I started, I was very sure that I was going to make it. I think I have that innate confidence as I do things. I think it's necessary as I approach things like that. It changes a little bit as you go through. You know, our pipeline's so long that your body starts to break down at times. And you wonder if injuries are the biggest thing that wash guys out of the Q course, you know? So as you start to face it, you wonder if it's going to get exacerbated by some event. And if no matter what is in your heart or your head, if your body doesn't keep up, you know, there are limitations to that. So, you know, as I faced various injuries through the training, I would question it a little bit. But as a whole, I generally pride myself on being motivated and believing in myself. You know, that the competitive drive that I think a lot of us in special operations have. You know, I think everyone in this panel probably has the same drive, an insatiable need to succeed. And the amount that can overcome when you start to face challenges, whether physically or mentally, or, you know, when you haven't slept for your 5th day or whatever it may be, it really does take control and can drive you through.
Thank you, Sergeant Maringer. Lieutenant Morgan, sir.
I was always certain that I was going to make it through. Everyone else around me and everyone that I knew wasn't. And that was a very driving force. And to piggyback off of what Lindsay said, if you go into these programs not 100% sure that you're going, there's only 2 reasons you're going to get kicked out or not make it. Either you're dead or you're broke, and they make you go away. And the mindset that I carried, like my brothers and sisters on this panel with me here, was just that. I'm not good. If somebody else on this planet could do it, by God, I can do it too. And I told myself that every single, no matter how long they kept us, and how cold, wet, tired, and miserable, and how sandy or whatever, it just did not matter. And it's a mental game, very much. They always do the 90%, 10%, 90 mental, 10%. It's probably 99% mental, 10% physical. At any given point, physically, your body will start to shut down. And then that's when your mind takes over. And the ones that make it through this type of training are the ones that will not be denied. Their mental fortitude, it just grows exponentially. The more miserable they become, the harder they go. And that's the mentality that gets you through that training. It got me through that training. And make no mistake about it, training is just one part of it. Combat is way worse than training, but it's, you know, it's a simulation. So if you can't cut it in the training pipeline, you're not going to be able to cut it in combat.
follow-up question for you, Mr. Morgan, or Sergeant Maringer. What advice would you give to some of these individuals who are going through the pipeline, who aren't as confident as you say that you guys were as you entered into your respective training fields? We can start with whoever would like to go first.
You want to go? Go ahead, buddy.
Yeah, sure. I would say don't go. I completely second what Morgan said, that until your mind's right, you are not only are you doing yourself a disservice, but I think you're doing the regiment a disservice, whatever you may be going into. I think that one thing you'll see is you start to encounter, the people who give their all in training you. They work incredible hours and they really care. And if you're going in there, with half the heart or half the mindset, then you're wasting their time. So yeah, I would say don't go. Sorry, I don't know if that's negative, but it's true.
No, you absolutely, you hit the nail. You have to be negative. Luckily for us, our training pipelines weed out those who just kind of want to do it. They thought it was cool. They saw the movies and they thought it was cool. They read the books like, oh, that sounds like that's what I want to do because it sounds, there is nothing cool about our jobs. There's nothing sexy about it. It's horrible. It's a misery. I mean, the lives that we have to lead. So if this is something you're just going to haphazardly start doing, we don't want you. We want the men and the women that are like, I'm a ranger to the bone. This is all I know. And this is all I want to do. And those are the ones that you want to look to your left and your right and see, not the ones that are like, well, I didn't have anything else to do. So this sounded cool.
Awesome. Well, I think it kind of comes off surprising when we hear that, but I think that's great to hear that truth coming from you guys, that if you aren't as confident, maybe you should rethink your decision before going and prepare yourself to actually go throughout this training and actually pursue these different careers. So though it's a hard training.
Brian?
Yes.
Make anyone that has the want and the drive to do this, they can, if they want it. I'm not trying to dissuade anybody and tell anybody, hey, you just, like I'm sure everybody on this panel, just like I was told, you can't do it. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying if you're not all in on this, and this is not something you want wholeheartedly in the spec war community, don't show up. We don't have time for that, and we don't have time to coddle you. This is a grown-ups world, and it's a very aggressive and unforgiving world.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for that. As we move on to our second question, Captain Haver, ma'am, this will be for you. You were the first female to go through Ranger School with Captain Grice. What advice would you give to anyone who's going outside of their comfort zone or entering into this uncharted territory, which would help them push through these hard times?
I really appreciate the gentleman's comments, first of all, primarily because the advice to you is you have to go in 100% knowing that that's what you want to do, and that you're not leaving. And it was very eloquently put unless you're dead or broken, to be honest. That's what it takes. When everybody else around you knows that you're in it for the right reasons, because there's definitely wrong reasons. There are guys that kind of dip their toes in the water. Guys or girls that dip their toes in the water and just want to know, can I do this? And to a certain extent, I think that that's okay. If you're trying to, test your mettle, if you haven't had experiences in your life that have really pushed you, but you know that you want something deeper, and you're trying to make something more of yourself, I think that that's definitely an aspect of it. But you have to want it. Yeah, I think it was very well said already.
Yes, ma'am, indeed. Thank you so much. This next question will be open to everyone. What do you think defines a leader who embodies warrior ethos, which is our theme for this year's National Character and Leadership Symposium? And can you share a personal experience with this type of leader? Lieutenant Hips, ma'am, we'll start with you.
One of my favorite quotes is, chaos and calmness are both contagious. So when you're looking at a leader and everything's going wrong, you know, who are you going to look at? The one that's running and screaming, or the one that says, hang on, let's figure it out. And he starts pointing directions and telling people where to go. You know, I had this great leader that I really looked up to because he was just so calm. And it was beautiful to watch him lead, because, you know, when he spoke, everyone just was quiet and they were silent and they just listened to what he said, and he knocked things out. And he looked at his counterpart, who was just out of his mind, just so chaotic, running and screaming and yelling at people. And, you know, that's the kind of leader that I drive to be towards, is the more calm leader that can lead in the, you know, most scary situations. So that's the best leader that I can look towards, is one that's fully confident in their decisions and can take a chaotic situation and make it calm like that.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Sergeant Maringer, sir, we'll go with you next.
Yeah, if I, you know, by the definition kind of the USAFA warrior ethos, if I had to choose one out of there, I would, you know, kind of second LT, and, you know, the mental aspect, the tough-mindedness, and the presence when everything is going wrong. You know, through different theaters, you see different, or you encounter different things, and you see different aspects of leadership. For us, the best leaders that I've ever seen, you know, which may bridge away from the classic definition of the word ethos, but is just such a humbleness. You know, I think it ties to that calmness in the face of chaos, but they really they believe in their soldiers. And, you know, at the ODA level, you know, which I can speak to, I was an X-ray, so I came right in. I don't have conventional time, but, you know, that he values all his senior NCOs and the feedback that we give. And then, you know, in a calm nature, he takes all that information and produces what he thinks is the best decision. So, you know, he makes sure that he's as well informed as he possibly can be. But believing in your subordinates is going to be one of the key attributes that a leader can have for success.
Thank you, Sergeant Maringer. Captain Haver, ma'am, we'll go with you next.
All good things. I think another one just would be, you know, perseverance. Sometimes we have to take, I think it's kind of underwritten a lot of times, to take that tactical pause, not to be indecisive, but to gather in the information that you need to make that good decision. So being able to receive, take that tactical pause, and kind of along the same lines that everybody's been talking about, be able to make a decisive decision, communicate clearly what that end state is, and to execute that boldly with the team. The humility is a huge aspect in that, always doing what's in the best interest of the team for mission accomplishment.
Thank you, ma'am. And Mr. Morgan, sir?
Obviously, you can see the pattern of the panel. There's we're getting the points that we're trying to drive across. The one thing that I took away from my time as a platoon commander was never be afraid to fail. And humility was a big thing for me, especially in a leadership position. Like Lindsay said, if the people that you're surrounded with there are there for an absolute reason, and if you don't have the faith and confidence in them to let them do their jobs and keep your thumb off of them, especially in the spec war community, you will go nowhere, absolutely nowhere. Because make no mistake about it, when sugar turns to absolute crap, and I'll keep it clean, you're going to want somebody, like the lieutenant said, that is calm, composed, and always knows that they don't know everything, but everyone around them can help them find that answer. And then you'll bring your troops back safely. And at the end of the day, that's what it's all about, when you're a combat leader.
Hey, Brian, I have an alibi for this too. Something we kind of got to that I think is important as well when you're, you know, in this special operations community is you are surrounded by experts in their field. You know, every subordinate that you have is an expert and is incredibly talented. So when you make a decision, you need to make that decision decisively, or you will get eaten alive. You know, the worst thing you can do is be indecisive and you will immediately start to lose the faith of the people below you. So just, have confidence and be ready to be questioned. I think that you can have a lot of opportunity for growth there, but it's a dog eat dog world out there.
In our communities, the worst call you can make in any situation is no call at all. And you will get eaten, but we eat our own. That's why we're special, like Lindsay said.
Thank you all so much. It's great to hear about all this surrounding warrior ethos and having that growth mindset and being having some humility and patience and being calm so that you can make these decisions effectively for your people. I think that's very important. But speaking of that, what is the most significant, and this goes out to any of the panelists, what do you think is the most significant barrier that you've had either throughout your training or throughout your career? And that's pretty much open to anyone. So if someone would like to jump in.
Can you elaborate on that question a little bit, please, sir?
Of course. So I guess I'll give it as a cadet perspective. We have certain barriers, or I'll make it a broad explanation. We kind of have a goal, and but there's something blocking us from actually accomplishing this goal or making a decision or doing what we want or what we think is best. So what type of barrier do you encountered throughout your career or training?
I think the biggest barrier that, we always, as Captain was talking about earlier too, is that people just don't fully commit. And I think that's when you talk about any of your ambitions or anyone in your class that wants to go out and do stuff, it's them that is preventing them from making their goal. You don't just say you want to do something, actually make a plan and sit there and fully commit to it. Because if you're just, say you want to be, in special forces career field, or if you ever want to go to something like I did, Ranger School or something like that, if you don't make a plan and you just say you want to go do it, then you're not going to get anywhere. I think all these things, I feel like everyone on the panel has pretty much gone over this, but all these things can be done by ordinary people. It's just the amount of effort that you put in, it has to be extraordinary.
I think that do you want it for training or for just overall?
Overall will work.
Yeah, for overall, I think it's definitely going to be your body keeping up. We have an incredible performance, Thor 3. We have professional strength coaches. Our head strength coach is from the Colorado Avalanche. Guys out of USC, Stanford. We have an incredible team that's assigned to us, and it's basically they're there to band-aid us and put us back on the field. Our op tempo was so high for a long time. Unfortunately, the suicide rate started to raise real high, so they really SOCOM came down and really started to focus on dwell time. But it's band-aids, and then you have. I'm a case study in it now as I kind of reach the med board process. I was never willing to not be deployed. So as we had injuries where, I probably needed a surgery 6-7 years ago, we just continue to train through it, because the worst thing that you can have happen to you is your guys deploying forward and you're either back, or if even worse would be if you're forward and you're, staying on the FOB or wherever you may be. But yeah, so as hard as we push across any special operations branch, just like Morgan said, training's one thing and it's horrible, but you start to get into combat and start to push in real life, it's a whole different beast. And you can push your body a little bit too far sometimes. So sometimes it's your body keeping up with your brain.
Yeah, I think I'll just add on to that one to say, like, the environment that you put yourself into. So yourself can end up being your barrier by not allowing yourself to take certain opportunities. Maybe you don't have a plan, or maybe you have the issue, with committing to it, but surrounding yourself with the right individuals to inspire you to get there as well. So there's a lot you can do on your intrinsic motivation, but a lot of this will always be limited by our experiences and the jobs that we're in. And it's important to reach out and to take ownership of that thing, seek out information and what it takes to get there. Whether that is, performance driven. So learning, how sleep and nutrition affect actually like how you perform physically and cognitively. Those types of things may not be your strong suit. You maybe don't have any background in that, but they're absolutely necessary for fueling the machine and keeping that efficiency going. So I would say, part of the barrier is a lack of knowledge, but consistently being thirsty for that and finding the environments, finding the people that you need to get you there. It's gotta be on you. You have to search for that. It's not going to just come to you.
Well said, Shay. For everyone out there, in Morgan's opinion, barriers are what we do in our communities, period. And make no mistake about it, the second you step into our world, that is absolutely what you're going to see every single day. It's what makes our job so exciting. Every day there's a problem set. Every day there's something that's kicking your ass. And what sets us apart from everybody else is our willingness to say, hell yes, this is what I'm looking for, and this is what I'm going to do. And it will never change. Our motto is the only easy day was yesterday. Everybody has one. Make no mistake about it. Every single day of your life in the Spec War community, in the military, in combat, it is a challenge that you've never seen before. That's what makes it so exciting. So just saying that, I want everyone that's listening to this, get your head around that. This is not a 9-to-5 job. This is a lifestyle.
And I think you kind of went into part of my follow-up question, because Lieutenant Hipsch was talking about commitment, and my follow-up question was, if you're a leader and you have someone who's under you that you're leading that isn't ready to commit or is having problems committing, what advice or how would you get that person to buy in and commit to whatever they have to do? And this is open to anyone again.
So again, I'll speak from kind of the ODA level. If you have it'll happen more with new guys as they come in, and especially it's changed a little bit as the last couple of years. Unfortunately, they say that you can't mass produce special operations soldier, but they're pushing that line, to be honest. We have some guys that have even come in that, don't do well on a PT test, something so simple. You have guys that have been around for a long time. Not maxing a PT test is insanity to me. So for us, it is such a small community, and it's so important that everyone pulls their weight. We'll add some extra training, so some of the senior guys will pull them in. If it's physical training, then I'll mandate that the new guy works out with me, or if, it's a new commo guy, and even though I'm an intelligence sergeant now, I'll pull him aside and help him do some training, but he gets about a week of that. And if he doesn't show that he is immediately taking the turn on his own initiative and taking the feedback that you're giving him and some of the tips and tricks and using that as in his toolbox for his own drive, then we will work to remove him. Whether he goes down to the B team and then, has a chance to kind of take a knee and reset and, reevaluate his priorities and why he's there. And if not there, then ideally, then he gets removed from group or sent somewhere. But it's too small of an element to have that kind of a weak spot. But as a leader, you have to try to develop him. But I think that the timeline is much shorter than you might see in other areas, speaking across, SOF operations as a whole.
So I deal with this issue every single day. The infantry, the Army infantry, I'm sorry to say, is not the elite organization, of our armed forces. It is a necessary element for sure. But it is not, by and large, vetted upon, multiple layers of volunteerism and professionalism, like some of these other communities. So motivating individuals is my job every day. The purpose, motivation, direction, that is the definition of leadership, is my challenge. It's my daily grind. And it gets very frustrating, specifically for a person like me. And there will be few and far between, maybe not far between, but there will be few, within the organization that are like that. And it's important to find those ones and encourage them and reward them. To be informal leaders if they're not leaders in the organization, to help pull others along with them. So you can be charismatic, you can be just a developmental leader, you can be a teammate. But honestly, the bottom line is that the individuals have to own it and want to own it. The standard has always got to be communicated, but the standard has to be owned by individuals in order to reach that level. So if individuals aren't taking ownership of it, it is the responsibility of the leader to dynamically adjust and adapt to more creative solutions to get their buy-in. And that buy-in has to be their idea, has to be their own. So I will say that for conventional forces, non-special operations forces, that is the daily grind, specifically in a time period now where we're not deploying back to back. We train until we fight, and for now there is no fight on the horizon for conventional forces.
Thank you all for that. Lieutenant Morgan, so you can go ahead and add in.
Oh, I was going to see if Chelsea wanted to go first, and I was going to clean up, but.
Oh, I was just gonna jump in and say, no worries. I was waiting to be spotlight. No, I'm just kidding. I think with a lot of the guys that, are under motivated and everything, you don't really want to give them more attention than you give everyone else. Because what do they say? The bottom 10% gets, 90% of your focus. And then what happens with the 90% of your guys that are doing well? You just forget about them. So I think the best thing to do is work with your few team leaders, whether they are airmen or NCOs, that can help bring them along. One of the things I would recommend if you're flight or, for you guys when you get out there and start getting a lot of airmen, is to just find the airmen that lead other airmen and make them good leaders to try and help bring along the other airmen that are having some difficulties like that. And if it is the case where you just multiple times you're having difficulties with the same one, then that's something that you have to work on with, like the Sergeant First Class talked about, pushing them out eventually.
As the panel said, rallying around an individual that's having difficulty with a particular, whatever that may be, that's one thing. We come together as a group. That's another thing that makes us special, is our ability to come together and assist someone who's having trouble with it. If it's language, it's shooting, it's swimming, jumping out of an airplane, it doesn't matter. That's one thing. Commitment now, and in our communities, hey, as a leader, when I was platoon commander, I didn't tolerate that. If you showed up, it's a volunteer program, make no mistake about it. And if you showed up and you didn't want to go to work, hey, guess what? I don't want you here, and you're gone. Because we don't have the luxury in these special operations communities to say, well, if you don't want to be here, we're going to take you anyway. And then when we have to move across the wire, if you just kind of want to do it, then you're jeopardizing the entire team. So we can't tolerate that. Everyone in this space is 110% all in all the time, which makes that's a luxury for us. Now, as Shay was saying, in conventional forces, they're not as scrutinized as we are in these communities. So you'll have those problematic areas, which, like in the regular Navy, I get it. That's one thing. But as far as spec ops go, when there's a lack of commitment, that's dangerous, extremely dangerous. It's cancerous, and you have to cut it out as quickly as you can.
Thank you all for that. That's great to hear from all of you guys about commitment throughout your respective career fields. I think as cadets here at the Academy, since we're about to go out and lead these individuals, whether we're going rated or non-rated, it's great to hear some advice about how to get these individuals to commit or buy into the mission. Kind of shifting gears a little, Sergeant Maringer talked about deployment. And so my next question, and this will probably be the final question before we move into the live Q&A, because I've heard that there's been some good questions coming in from cadets, so that's awesome to hear. But final question, what toll does it take, and this goes out to anybody, what toll does it take on your family or significant others to perform at such a high level? How do you balance the training op tempo or things you just cannot tell your family or friends with trying to have a personal life? And I guess Sergeant Maringer, sir, we'll start with you.
I mean, you almost don't, you know, fortunately or unfortunately, you know, I wasn't married for, you know, most of my career. I've been married for 4 years now, 5 years now. I gotta check with the boss. But, you know, I went in a year period, I saw her for 6 weeks one time, you know. And then, you know, even as much as we train, we come home from combat and it's different. You know, we come back different for a transition, you know, especially the past couple of times. We've been hit hard. Our team's been hit hard. You know, we've lost a bunch of guys. And so, you know, in terms of a relationship, you even though you're there, you're losing that time as well. If it was enough that if I wasn't, you know, submitted for the med board, that I probably wasn't going to stay career, just because of the toll that it does take on the family. And I believe most of us have relatively the same op tempo. But that balance is hard, you know. FaceTime is a life changer. Being able to FaceTime from theater, you know, when you have a time. Fortunately, we deploy with our own small satellite system. So when I was a commo guy, we could be in the middle of a valley, and I'd give my guys Wi-Fi so they could have that. You know, we have the little SDNs, and it would be enough that, you know, guys, we'd block some time in the middle of the morning, you know, 2 a.m. and a guy could go in a room and have a little FaceTime with his wife or his kid or something. And a lot of that is just enough to make a difference to keep you going. But you have to really believe why you're there. You know, we love what we do and we truly believe in what we're doing. And you can't have a crack in that while you're there. So for us, it's worth it. And it's also a big thing is, at least, you know, with a wife, you know, I think kids may not always understand, but your wife or husband, whatever it may be, you marry a person that understands the environment that they're getting into. Just be upfront with them when you're getting into it. And, you know I can speak for my wife. She takes a lot of pride in what I've accomplished and who I am as an operator. And a lot of times that's enough, you know, so just trying to focus on those things. And when you have the time, just commit to it and give the person every ounce of you when you are home. Make the most of it. Have a good dog.
I think we all want dogs here at the Academy. Captain Haberman, we'll go with you next.
All right, so this one's a hard one. I've been getting asked this question a lot lately, specifically by other females pursuing combat arms branches. But what does it look like? How and when can I have kids? When do I get married? I'm not married. I don't have kids. I don't know. And to be honest, the prospects aren't exactly looking great if my trajectory is to continue on this way. So it's the hard truth. Like, it's a choice. Like, you have to make a choice. Do I want to pursue having, you know, at the end of my career, whenever that is, eventually the Army's going to ask me to hang up my uniform and forget who I am. Maybe I'll be Army famous forever. Have no idea. But the point is, am I going to be able to look back and be happy with the life, you know, that I lived? So it's a personal choice. When you're in it, you have to be all in it. When I finally make the decision to have kids, because I have to physically do that as the female, right? I want to be all in to that. And I don't want my mission, my men to I guess, suffer from that. So that'll be a very personal decision. And I'm sorry, ladies, I don't have the right answer for you. It's got to be your choice, your decisions, what you want to do with your life. The opportunities are out there. If you want to continue and pursue to the highest levels, you can do that. That might be you. And I encourage you to just to not cut it short. But I would also encourage you that it would be very hard to think that you could do it all. You probably really do need to make a decision for yourself, which one it is that you want to do.
Thank you so much, ma'am. And you have a cute dog in the background. Lieutenant Morgan, sir, we'll go with you next.
She hit the nail on the head right there. I think Lindsay would have said the same thing, but apparently his wife's in the room with him. I was married to the teams my first 8 years in. And that was absolutely the advice I was given, because the operational tempo, whether it's training or theater, we're gone. And if your head is somewhere else and not where it needs to be, you're in trouble. And those are the challenges when it comes to family life, marriage. My family understood, this is what I'm doing. I'll call you when I can. I'm married now with 2 sons. My wife had no idea what I did for a living up till this point. She moved in with me. And then I left for a year when she moved in. And then I came back. We had a son, and I left 2 weeks later. And it is very stressful on the family environment. And I think for anybody who wants to go all in these communities, my advice to you is like, do it single. And that's the way I did it. I saw, I mean, what is our statistics in the bed? Are we 85 to 90% divorce rate? I mean, do the math. And it's not that the military is making your husband or wife. It's not that it's not that we're forcing you to not be in love and have a successful relationship. There's onesies, twosies out there that it's successful, but for bigger picture, you're gone so much and your head you're just inundated and overwhelmed with what you have to do for a living. Because if you're not, you're going to miss something. Somebody's going to die. Plain and simple, period of discussion. And that's just how, get out of here. There they are. And that's just my 2 cents. If anybody's like, hey, give me a number, I would say do 10 to 12 years and then start looking for a spouse. Have the military issue one. Hey, come on, Daddy's on the phone.
Thank you so much, sir. Lieutenant Hibbs, ma'am, we'll go with you next.
I don't have really too much to add. I haven't had to deal with the family stressors. I don't have a significant other or family. I just have my dog over here as well. But I do have a lot of good buddies that are with you. And I think that's something important to find, is some individuals that have the same goals as you, that want to push you and make you a better person. And whether you're going to dedicate yourself to the gig or whatever you're going to do otherwise, but you got to find some people with some kind of like-mindedness that can push you to stay strong in whatever your career path is going to be.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for your candid responses throughout our moderated portion of this panel regarding warrior ethos from all of your unique perspectives. We will now begin our question and answer portion. Cadet Second Class Steiner, I hand it over to you.
Thank you, Cadet Augustine. Our first question from the audience is directed at Morgan Luttrell. This person wants to know, what do you think set you apart from your peers to graduate Honor Man and Buds training?
How did you guys know that? Okay, I'll make this very clear. Graduating Honor Man of SEAL training out of my class did not make me the fastest runner, best swimmer, the best shot. That position is voted on by the class and the cadre of that one particular individual that is most well-rounded and is a good leader, a good friend, a good teammate. And I was fortunate enough, we started out with 250 guys. We graduated with 27, and out of those 27, they nominated me as the honor man. I think just because I was the joke petty officer. I made everybody laugh when we were really struggling, and then maybe they just kind of gave it to me.
Thank you for that. The next participant has asked, after all of the leadership experiences and training that you have been through, how do you continue developing as a leader every single day? And that's open to anybody who wants to participate.
I guess I'll take it really quick. So just seeking new challenges and experiences, honestly. So I think that I get really uncomfortable when I feel like I'm plateaued or I'm not continuing to better myself with people around me. So just seeking new ways of thinking about things, new ways of perspectives or experiences that are going to give me something to continue to move forward on instead of kind of just sitting. The Army in general typically does a good job conventionally of once you learn your job, you're kind of moved on to the next thing. So it should keep it mostly interesting, but continue to better yourself just constantly by digging into something else, challenging yourself and not being just okay with just stagnation.
I listened a lot to Jim Rohn, not just for motivation, but you know, we have businesses and stuff that we run, and it's something that, you know, I get a lot of motivation from people like that. Gary Vee, Jim Rohn, Tony Robbins, things like that. Jim Rohn has a thing called the sum of five, that you are the average of the 5 people that you surround yourself with. So, you know, in my business life, I'm surrounding myself with, you know, we own a real estate investment company. So I surround myself with people who own thousands of units, you know, things that I can grow with. The same thing in SOF. I create relationships with leaders. You know, we have kind of a more open door than is conventional, you know, so I can sit with colonels and whatever it may be and just be in that environment. You know, when you're in briefs, pay attention to what they're talking about, pay attention to the little nuances that they focus on, and take little, you know, tips and experiences from those interactions. But even within our community, you can truly surround yourself with the best and the brightest. There's always, no matter how good you are, there's always someone that's better than you, and you should strive to put yourself next to them, and you will never stop learning.
For myself, you know, I'm lieutenant, but this is my 5th duty station, as we talked about earlier, and that's something for you cadets to realize too, is every 2 years, 2-3 years, you're going to be moving to a new base. You're going to have a completely new job. So it's just constantly learning. Every single person you come in contact with, you're going to be learning from, whether you're a flight commander or you're moving up to be an operations officer or, you know, the squadron commander. Every single position, you're meeting hundreds of people at each base, at each location that you're learning from. And every time you go somewhere, I say, you know, stick with something that you really are passionate about and meet those people. Find them early in your new assignments, because they're going to be the ones to push you to keep you learning and keep you passionate about what you're doing.
Network, educate, and then act on it. The panel said this. Anytime you shake somebody's hand, and if it is an admiral or a general, and they say, if there's anything I can ever do for you, let me know. Call them. Always make, I mean, and I'm dead serious. I learned that early on. If somebody says they'll do me a favor, I'll call on it in a hurry and hold them to it because they said it. Educate yourself constantly. I've had time to reflect since I've been out of the service, and always as someone in the military, especially as a leader, always continue to educate yourself. As Shay said, don't go stagnant, because you'll die on the vine. And if you don't think for 1 second that, hey, look, I got the most wazoo idea. I want to learn Russian, move to Moscow, and be in the CIA after I leave the Air Force while I'm in. You can do that. The military does a great job of teeing you up to anything you want. Your imagination is the only thing keeping you from it. And you can leave the Air Force and go to the Navy. You can be an astronaut, for God's sakes, coming out of the Air Force. I mean, just don't ever settle for anything. Always continue to climb that ladder.
Kind of going off of that point about education and receiving motivation from others, what recommendation do the panelists have for leaders early in their careers for reading? And were there any books that were transformative to you guys?
Does that need to be military focused or in general?
Not necessarily. Any reading that was particularly transformative in your life?
So for me, Gary Keller, he's actually the person who founded Keller Williams Real Estate. He has a book called The One Thing. And you could apply it to anything. What he really does is teaches a mindset where you have an end state and you dial back from that. You know, so if you have a 10-year goal, what can I do in a year that's going to set me up for success for 10 years? What can I do in a month to set me up for success in a year? And it goes all the way down to 1 second. And it just splits it down. And it gives you such clarity in your goals. So, if you are conventional right now, or, if you're a cadet, or, whatever your path may be, in 2 years, if I want to go to a selection, whatever it may be, in 1 year, what can I do to set me up for success for that? And then dial it all the way back to, what are you going to do after this conference that we're doing? It's going to be 5:30 in the evening here. So are you going to go have beers at the bar, or are you going to do something to help progress yourself? So that's what I would recommend. The One Thing by Gary Keller.
Shay, you going? Everybody should read A Message to Garcia by Elbert Hubbard. It's 30 pages. When I was going through officer candidate school, my drill instructor, who was a Marine, one of the greatest leaders I've ever met, he said, everybody on the planet should read this book. 30 pages. Message, it's what everybody in the military should read. I mean, I've got a wall behind me full of military knowledge. The largest collection of works in the Library of Congress are books over leadership. I mean, I don't think anybody really has it figured out. Just always know that you can learn something from somebody, whether it's good or bad.
I actually read go ahead.
No, I was just about to say the Message to
You read
Garcia
it?
definitely be on everybody's list. So yeah, there you go. You nailed it. Mine, sorry, not necessarily in a leadership vein, but definitely, I can kind of tell that the cadets are kind of thinking like, hey, like, am I going down the right? Am I making the right choices? Am I following the path that I want to? Those types of things. And I think that honestly, I stumbled upon the book, but if you've never read The Alchemist, highly encourage taking the time to do that and help recenter yourself. To be honest, it's a book I always revisit probably once a year or so. Most recently, I read it on my last deployment, and I was like, man, this gets you going again. It's kind of a good center book.
I actually just read The One Thing last year too. But I think you can kind of see it's everyone's talking about, reading is just very important. But for me, I try to read a few books, and I'm also working on my master's degree. So reading a lot on Homeland Security, that's what my focus is. But I listen to audiobooks every day, whether I'm just doing the dishes or I'm going to work. So one thing, if you don't have Audible or something like that, and maybe you're too busy to sit down and actually read, I'm sure you guys are running around all the time. So maybe on your run, you just put in an audiobook instead of listen to Spotify or whatever you listen to. That would be my recommendation, to throw on some audiobooks.
Thank you guys for those recommendations.
Can I add something to that real quick?
Yeah, for sure.
And I learned this going through grad school too. Like, don't look at, if you're reading military literature or literature nonetheless, always read the book to understand what the author is trying to say, but also understand that that is a great way to learn descriptives and a way to explain things, because authors have the way to articulate things that make it understandable. And when you're in situations as a leader, whether or not you're briefing the president or you're briefing your men or women, that you have to have that ability. And when you read a lot and read a variety of books, authors have the ability to give that gift to you and take it on board. I mean, it's not copyrighted. Say, hey, look, I like the way they said this. I like the way this looks, and add it to your portfolio. It's just one of those things. I thought a lot of people read and they don't see that. I just want to offer that.
Thank you, sir.
Kayla, last question, please.
All right. The last question will be this one from somebody in the audience. Lieutenant Luttrell, you mentioned that we need to be okay with failing as a leader. So how do we foster a culture of being okay to fail? And that's open to anybody.
That's a really hard pill to swallow. And I was against it at first, but I learned more in failure than I ever did in any of my successes. And it took my platoon chief to humble me into this position, because I was very I'd been in a while. I'd seen a lot. I was very confident. I was more than likely cocky, you know, hey, it's what I am, you know, whatever. But knowing that you will not always be successful, and you can learn more in those failures and apply that to the next mission set, instead of being embarrassed, which you will be embarrassed, which I'm a failure, you know, all the emotions that run with that, that can fuel the flame to be more successful than ever before. Because don't ever make the same mistake twice. If you do that, that means you're not paying attention and you just don't care. And then if that's the case, you just don't belong. But it's hard to fail in our communities. People, like I said, we eat our own, and it's embarrassing. It sucks. I mean, it's an ass kicker. But you just have to take that in stride and know that as you progress through the ranks, you can always look back to that failure and say, well, I know for a fact this is not the way we're going to do it.
I think it's about how you respond to failure, you know, so people are going to see how you respond. And if you respond well and you grow from it, that next guy that's seeing it, he's going to have the confidence to fail and hopefully the motivation to grow from it in the same way that you did, and on down the line. So just by, you know, setting the example of how to grow and not letting it get you down, or, you know, if you do initially get down from it, how do you respond from it? People feed off that, you know, and to create a overall environment of a quality response, it starts at the individual, and you can kind of set a standard for that. So just remember that when you fail, people are watching. I think we come full circle to kind of the beginning talking about people watching, but people are watching, both your peers and your leaders, and you can get a lot of respect from that, and you can give other people the confidence to fail and grow from it without even actually knowing you're doing it.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, you know, kind of to wrap up all of that, it's just, you know, success is not final. So amateurs practice until they get it right, and professionals practice until they can't get it wrong. So if you think that you've made it once you've gotten a success, and you don't want to go over the ledge or push yourself just a little farther to see how far you can go, then you're probably doing yourself and the people around you a disservice. But with that, so success is not final. Failure in most places is not fatal either. And there's a good distinction in that you can't be so afraid to fail that you don't take that extra step. You don't go that extra mile. You don't try that extra thing. Because you're afraid to fail. You can't do that. You have to be confident, and you have to dive into it.
I think at some point, some individuals are just so afraid of failure that they don't just give themselves the opportunity to do something. And it's about, for leadership for me, and, you know, for things that I'm passionate about, is exposing myself in ways that I put myself up to failure. And I always am willing to receive feedback in just, you know, Sergeant First Class was talking earlier about humility, and I think everyone was talking about humility, but just taking the time to say, hey, what I mess up on, let's talk about this, let's fix it, because I want to be better. And just showing my team that I want to be better makes them better. I tell them, you know, the first thing I say when I meet my troops is I have high expectations of you guys. And I want you guys to have high expectations of me. Whatever they are, raise them up a little bit. And if I can't meet it, I'm going to do everything I can to dig deeper and get better. So failure is just one more shovel that you can add to your toolbox and start digging even more, dig deeper to make yourself better as a leader.
Awesome. Thank you all so much, Cadet Steiner and panelists, for all that you have had to share. I would just like to give a little quote on some of the feedback that we're getting about this panel real quick before we conclude. But someone said that listening to the Special Warfare panel has given me some good perspective. It makes this all easier. And I think we can all agree that you guys have provided us with great words of encouragement and advice to go throughout our journey as cadets and as future officers in the Air Force, Space Force, and those trying to cross commission. So thank you all so much once again for your willingness to share your perspectives with us. Your unique backgrounds and experiences have enriched our view of warrior ethos and all that encompasses that. On behalf of the cadet wing, the faculty and staff of the Air Force Academy, we would like to present you with a small token of our appreciation. Once again, many thanks. This concludes the Warrior Ethos panel. We appreciate audience feedback, so please take a moment to answer the brief survey accessible in your web browser when the event closes, or you may click on the QR code that will be posted here shortly. Finally, we encourage you to continue the Warrior Ethos conversation and welcome you to join us for our 2021 National Character and Leadership Symposium on 25 and 26 February 2021. Thank you all. Have a great evening.